This week on Wednesday Wisdom, we're moving into Romans chapter 4. And Paul has started laying out this great detail about how we're so broken and sinful, and we really don't have a way to solve that ourselves. I mean, going back to Romans 3:23, we all fall short of the glory of God. And in chapter 2, we learned that we're real good at seeing sin in others, but sometimes we don't see it in ourselves. And I think, by this point, he's definitely got us caught maybe beaten down enough that we're accepting the fact that we are these broken people who can't save ourselves and have that distance there from God. So thankfully, Romans 4, quite a deep, heady chapter. And thankfully here, Paul is starting to lay out the case for the hope we have in the good news through Jesus. But man, I described it at the weekend devotional this weekend as kind of a real meaty subject, like a pork butt. There's so much going on in Romans 4 that just to surface read through it or just take the skimming of it doesn't really give it justice. The reason I say it's kind of like a pork butt, you got to put it on the grill, leave it sit for 18 to 20 hours, and then you get this beautiful piece of meat. And that's exactly Romans 4. That the more we just stew on it, the more we just dive in and spend our time there, the more little nuances we see of how great Paul wrote this, that we could really understand this term called justification by faith, how we are made right before God, not because of anything we did, only because of what Jesus did. And that often is a struggle for us, because it sounds very simple, but living it out is so hard because we always fall back to wanting to work for it, wanting to earn it. I mean, a perfect example is like these messages we do. It's very easy for us to say, man, if I just give this great message, so many people respond to it, and I'm helping God out so much. But really, God's the one that's doing all the work. It's nothing to do with us. We cannot put our faith in that. We need to put our faith in Christ alone. It's not anything I did, it's what He did. Saving faith is, do I believe what God is going to do, what He said He's going to do? Paul uses the example of Abraham in this book, in this chapter. Abraham is a perfect person because Abraham represents two different people groups. He represents the Jews, but he also is the father of the non-Jews. And Abraham's faith is what was counted him as righteousness. And man, so many people in the Old Testament, you get that question a lot. How are people in the Old Testament saved? How did they get to go to heaven? Because Jesus wasn't there yet. Again, because they put their faith in what God was going to do. They knew He was going to do it. But you might say, well, man, Abraham had those doubts. Yeah, he did. And isn't that awesome that we can still have saving faith in Jesus, even though we have doubts from time to time, right? Peter doubted Jesus. Peter failed walking on the water because he had those little doubts and reservations, yet he still had that saving faith. Why? Because when he struggled, when he fell, he looked to Jesus for a way through it. And that's exactly it, is trusting Jesus when things aren't going our way. Man, there's so much here in Romans 4. I'm going to cut it off here for now, but I just invite you to really spend some time in this book here this week and just, see where it leads you. Look, it's got answers to so many questions in our faith, man, but just dig in there and see where God takes you. We'll catch you next week on Wednesday Wisdom.